So hello again, I hope you all well, and I have promised to continue with this portrait of the old bearded man. And so we're going to talk about the rest of the portrait, about how I resolve the problem with the hair and the rest of it. Now, I've always think it's a good idea just first to talk about the colors, even that you have seen it in the first video. So here are the colors that I have been using. So you have the primary colors, black and white, and a light red. And I'm going to walk you very quickly through the mixing of these colors again. So I'm mixing the first mix of 3 primary colors, which gives me a beautiful rich brown that is my starting color for many things that I do. I always divide the colors one from the other, so I divided this color and make one darker for my darker values, and from the other one I'm starting to make lighter values, and then I will divide that one again and create another lot from that one another, from that one another, until I come to the lightest value. So in this process I'm actually keeping that mother color connected to all of these other colors that I'm going to create, and so that gives me a really nice harmony within the painting, and it also makes it pretty simple to understand and to mix. So here are all the colors that I have pre-mixed, the brushes, medium that I have in a little container. Now the reality of it is that when I start these things, and when I finish my day of painting, I just close the colors together between 2 sheets of perspex, and then when next day when I come again, I just open the perspex, take colors from one side to the other side, and I'm ready to paint. Now that may last for about a week if I paint every day, before I have to remix the colors. So here I am, and I'm starting on the top part of the face. So I'm working the forehead, and I'm starting as usual with the darkest colors that I can see. So I started with the lighter dark color, and now I'm putting the darker dark color. So I'm using the flat bright brush, so it's a synthetic flat, to keep me away from over mixing the colors too early. So here are the lighter colors that I'm going to use after I've used the darker colors. So it's a step by step from the darkest to the lightest. So I'm applying the it is not the lightest color, it is the second color from the lightest that I'm putting in, and notice that I am not blending these colors together yet. I'm still using the flat brush, synthetic soft flat, and placing the light colors where they need to be. So this is my lightest color, and you have to remember this is still a first layer. I have put some light color on the bottom part of the face, which would be a second layer, but only a little bit. So on this picture you're just seeing a cloth and a filbert brush, a soft synthetic filbert that I'm using for softening and blending the colors, adjacent colors to each other. So I always start with 2 darkest, then the darker and medium, then the medium and light. And every time that I feel that my brush is being saturated with with the color, I'll wipe it in the cloth and do it again and again until I get a nice blended feel of the skin. So it takes a little bit of skill, this one. You have to have enough paint on the surface. It's wet into wet, obviously, If you haven't got enough, you won't be able to blend it. If you have too much, you will be probably struggling a little bit with having too much color and moving the color too much. So here again, here are the brushes that I'm going to use and the colors that I'm going to use. And here is what ended up with the skin tones. So I don't have a hair yet. I have a first layer on the face, and here are the colors that I'm going to start with to create a background before I actually do the hair. So the background has to be before the hair. It would be very difficult to place the hair, the background, when you already painted hair. So I always do the skin tones, then I'll do the background, then I go to the hair. So I'm removed some of the lines, helping lines. I'm using those two dark colors to create a very dark background and a large palette knife. So you can see me placing the darker color on the canvas. It's a nice and quick process. A color has to be, you have to cover the canvas well, just like that first layer on the face. A good amount of color, you have to mix a little bit more. You go slightly over the edges of the hair, so the hair can come over that background. So I'm mixing the two colors, creating a slightly lighter shades or values on the top, and a very, very dark at the bottom of the painting. I'm pretty careful around the areas that will not have anything over it. So the top of the skull, where there is not too much hair, I have to carefully place the color. And here I'm placing the bottom part, which is much darker. And under the beard, until a whole lot is covered. So this does not take very long. This maximum 20 minutes. But you have to have enough paint mixed to cover a whole canvas. Otherwise, you're going to be mixing again and again. So this is not a background, this is actually a man's body, but it's very dark, and I'm using the same colors, the darker color actually, than I've used on the top in a background. Now I have a bristle brush, a wide 1-inch brush that I use to blend the strokes together. It's a bristle brush is a much rougher brush, so you can see how it leaves all these brush strokes, but it combines the colors. I also make sure that all my edges are covered, because the palette knife doesn't necessarily cover all of them. And after I finish all this blending of colors together in a way that I like, I'll take a very soft brush. It is not a real softener. I have the real softeners, but in these videos I like to use the materials and equipment that you can actually easily get. So I will be using just a small soft brush, and I am making the edge where the skull meets the background nice and soft, so it hasn't got a sharp edge to it, so it feels rounded rather than just like if you would be cutting paper. So with the soft filbert brush, I'll soften that edge as you see me doing it now, and then with larger soft brush I will remove, you can see the cloth, you can see the brush, I will remove those brush strokes that I created when I was blending the colors with a bristle brush. So this brush will reduce and remove some of the brush strokes, making the background nice and smooth. It gives the colors a nice velvety feel. So you can see the brush strokes and then they disappear as I'll brush gently over the top with that softener. I call it a softener, it's a flat brush, soft flat brush. I do have nice softeners that are very expensive brushes, so so here is the result of that first section. So you can see the face, you can see the background, and now I'm starting finally on the beard and on the hair. So again, a very similar mix as for the face, the darkest colors first. After that comes the rich browny red, and after that lighter and slowly until I come to the light. So drawing is important. I know where I'm placing the color. I'm watching my reference photo very carefully, placing all the darks. Now the darks is the first color that you're placing, so you can always make it actually bigger than what you see, because the next color and next color will slightly cover it. So if you do not put enough darks, it's going to all end up in mid-tones, which is not enough interest in the painting. So here I'm placing the brown reddy color. So it's my second dark color. I'm using either flats, or I'm using sometimes bristle when I'm doing I'm using sometimes the filbert brushes when I'm doing hair straight into it, because I won't be blending this. This is gonna be where it is and not blending. So observation is everything in the painting. How well you can see is really important. And to see, in order to see well, you do have to draw a lot. So filling up almost all the spaces with that second brown color, because the lighter color can come on top of it, and then the lightest color on top of that. So this is all wet into wet. So all the colors are applied in one session, and here is the result without the light. So I had a break, and next day I continue, or 2 days later I continue with the lighter colors. So you can see I left only very little space for the light color, because the light color can easily come over that previous color as well. So I will not be jumping straight into the lightest color. It always is a slow process to the light. So you can see this is my next color, and I'm using a smaller filbert, nice and sharp edged, and I am going to place the slightly lighter hair, and lighter I go, more fine my application, more careful I am. The light is what makes the painting, well, light and dark. So you do not want to cover all the dark, otherwise you're going to have no contrast between the colors. There you go. So nice filbert brush, soft, synthetic, with a nice sharp edge and a little bit of medium to keep the color flowing. Now another slightly lighter color coming up, and you saw me touching it with a finger. Now I do that a lot because when you load up the brush with the color and that first touch on the canvas can be a little bit too loaded with color, and if you want that edge of that stroke to be softer, I just touch it with my finger. Now I'm using a liner or rigger. It's a very thin brush, soft synthetic brush. I'm using lots of medium for that because you need fluidity, and this is the lightest color that I'm using, only here and there just to highlight, and you can see me softening those edges again, the beginning and the end sometimes. Otherwise it's just got a little bit too chunky edge to it, so if there is too much paint on your liner. It usually happens when you load the brush with the color. So careful placement, good observation. If you're putting a light color into a light section, it has to be lighter. If you're putting it into a dark section, it will not be the same color. It will be much, much darker color. So I'm using all of those colors that I mixed in over the very darks. I will be using the brown color, and over lighter sections I would be using a color that's got a little bit more white. And I've lost some of the dark colors and the contrast is not strong enough, so I have decided that I'll go backwards and find some negative spaces with the dark colors, and also on the edges of the hair I'd like it to blend into the background, which is very dark. So I am going back to the dark color and finding those spaces and blending those edges a little bit more so they sort of disappear into the background. And here is the lighter color again. So when you look at the palette, they don't look very light, but when they come on all of that dark surface, they actually look very light. So it is the color that you saw on the palette, and you see how light it looks when I place it over those sections. I always support my hand with the mole stick, so I don't smudge anything, and I have more steady hand as well. So further with the light you go, more careful you have to be of the placement and accuracy of the placement. And here is the liner again with the lightest color, which almost seems to be white when you're placing it on that background now, but it is not on the palette. It's actually very gray browny color on the palette. And here I'm coming back into the black again, finding some negative space there. It's easy to overrun things with the lighter color, so sometimes it's necessary to go back and place the dark colors back again. Using the filbert again, it's a soft filbert, synthetic. So same color in the dark space could look much lighter, and in a light space could look like a light color. So very much depends where you're placing the color. So here you go, it's a lot of details, a lot of back and forth, ending up with the lightest strokes using the rigger or liner. So we are almost at the end of the details for the hair and beard, but there is still a second layer on the face, and I felt that the video will be a little bit too long for that, so I have decided to go for a third section, which is going to be rather short, but I will do that, and you can watch it later on, and that's going to finish the details in the face. So here are the details of the hair and a beard. And thank you very much for watching, and the third one, the last section of the series, is coming soon, so keep watching this space, okay? And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye.